languages. Roosevelt couldn't do restaurant French, and she was the brain. And she was the one who really cared about those who had been left with all of her Hull houses and so on, those left outside of the ordinary stream of life. And she was very active on that front. Oh, she was extraordinarily admirable.
For people who say there needs to be a New Deal today, what do you say to them? What does that mean?
Well, we don't need another repetition of the original New Deal, which was economic restructuring. Though if we had something like that, or we may need something like that, because the mess, it's going to take 2 generations to undo the mess of the Bush people. Too much has been damaged, too much is now. Just look at the judicial system, look at these, judges they've been appointing. No, the power was seized using the 9/11 adventure as a cause to overthrow the government of the United States, and it was overthrown. And was any voices raised against it? The first one was perpetual war for perpetual peace. That's why I wrote that one, because I didn't want to sit down and do a whole batch of political books, but there was no choice. So I wrote that first to try and explain who the enemy was. Every time I hear Islamo, terrorism is on the march.
Or Islamofascist.
Oh, Islamofascist. The phrase makes no sense. How can a non-Italian be a fascist? It never spread that far. The stupidest group of people that I have ever seen in public office are in it, have been in it for the last 10 years, whatever. They don't know anything. And you can see when George Bush is trying to read his notes, and, well, we're trying to protect the Grecians who are on the march. No, I mean, it's the Turks. We're having a problem with Turkey. And when Americans don't know stupid people, the country's out of business.
As we sat in Gore Vidal's living room, I asked him about his long-term companion and their home, which they shared for decades in Hollywood Hills.
Well, a batch of these houses were built around 1920 in an area called the Outpost. This is the Outpost. That was sort of a suitable place for me to be living. And so it came to pass that Howard and I, my friend now deceased, Italy was going to be impossible to live in, where we had been for some time, during what I call the Cedars-Sinai years. We saw them up ahead, and he didn't survive them. I did. And we had to be near American hospitals. So,
when did you meet Howard?
1950.
1950. Where?
Manhattan. He was in advertising. His name was Auster, just like Fred Astaire's. And he was turned down by every advertising agency, and he graduated from NYU because it was a Jewish name. Can you imagine? He was rejected because he was Jewish. And I said, well, this is silly. I said, change the R to an N. So he became Howard Austin, which has caused a lot of confusion to biographers, but immediately he was hired at Doyle, Dane and Bernbach, a very good house. Amazing to think how recently all that was still in effect.
So you were with him for over half a century.
Yeah.
What is the secret to a long relationship?
Oh, no sex. You can't tell Americans that because they think everything is sex because they're so beautiful and vital and, full of joy, which they want to spread around. And I've always thought that there's nothing that can destroy a friendship as much as sex. So would you rather have a friend, or you can always get sex out there in the dark?
How do you live past your partner? How does your life change?
Well, you go into a room and it's empty. One notices that. That's about it.
Do you feel like you're continuing the conversation with him?
A bit, yeah.
How do you want to be remembered?
I don't give a goddamn.
Gore Vidal, sitting in his living room where he's lived for decades, most of that time with his partner, Howard Auster. This is Democracy Now! Gore Vidal authored many books, plays his latest memoir, Point-to-Point Navigation. That does it for our broadcast. I'll be this weekend in Boston on Friday night at the Unitarian Church, the Jamaica Plain Forum, on Saturday in Chicago at the Green Fest, on Sunday 2 o'clock at the Free Library in Philadelphia. You can go to our website to get details next weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Berkshire, Hoda Cadusa, Armante Angeli Comet, Jeffrey Hagerman, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Massoud, Robbie Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Peter Curries are our engineers. You can go to our website for transcripts, video, and audio podcast. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.